Welcome to Cultivated Conversations. We're back in New York City for today's episode. Today's guest has had an incredible and unique career journey. Tonna Obaze left the world of corporate finance and founded her own purpose-driven company. We get into what it's like to be a founder, working in social impact, and we just get real about how to move through life with intention. So let's get into it. Tonna, welcome to Cultivated Conversations.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. I am so excited to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here. And I know that you and I have been trying for some time now to get together and just have a conversation and have a hang. And this is actually our first proper hang. I know
Yes.
we've had a Zoom or two before. And what a better way for me to get to know you and vice versa than in this forum.
Have an organic conversation. I love being able to connect with people in person. I think you know how it is in the business and industry between events and managing your own team and clients and contracts. It can be so hard to find that time to really have that one-on-one in-person connection with people. But ultimately, even in this Zoom and digital world, I think that the best connections really are in person. I was so glad to sit down with you, and I know that we were connected by an incredible mutual friend of both of ours.
Yes.
And it's always great to run into people in the industry who are doing the same things, thinking strategically, supporting talent, and coming at entertainment and media from so many different lenses and avenues.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Fellow founder and agency owner as well.
Oh, don't worry, girl. We are going to get into that.
Get into it.
Yeah. Well, first, let's set up who you are, right? I mean, you have what on paper looks like a wild and wonderful sort of trajectory, right? From very traditional corporate world of finance, right, at Goldman Sachs, to now running your own firm, which we're going to talk about a lot because I think what you do is you've carved your own lane. So tell us the journey of Tonna. Like, how did you get here?
Absolutely. I mean, I always start with my family because I'm a dual citizen of Nigeria and America, and I grew up going back and forth between both. And I think before I had language for a lot of the work I do today, I was younger and I just saw that there was so much talent in Nigeria. There was so much talent around the world, but opportunity wasn't the same. And when I was here in America and I was going to school and I was fortunate enough to grow up in New Jersey and go to private school, I just saw the fact that there was so much opportunity that was put in front, whether it was resources, availability of education, extracurricular programs, that I could really see changing the trajectory of my life. And I wondered, what can I do to help somebody else change the trajectory of their life as well?
Yeah, wow.
And again, really fortunate to be Nigerian, and the culture that I come from, it's a very we, not an I culture.
I love
so
that.
Even from when I was younger, it was about, bringing my old textbooks home or bringing my gaming devices when I would go home for Christmas and connecting with people there, and also learning from them culture and experiences that I didn't have that was ultimately making me a more well-rounded person. I think from when I was young, I was always very curious, very tenacious. My parents were always like, you didn't really ask for help. You wanted to figure it out on your own. And I think that led me all the way up until the college experience. And for a lot of my life, I knew that I wanted to help whatever I was doing. My skills and abilities should be able to help somebody else feed their family too. But as many people will hear from Nigerians, it's very like doctor, lawyer, engineer. Yeah. Finance was not even on the table as an option.
Okay.
So for a lot of my life, I was growing up on my way to become a trauma surgeon. Was always taking science classes, spent a summer at Georgetown Medical School, like with med students, had interned at Mount Sinai Hospital. And for a lot of my life, surgery was where we were headed. And I think this is why, representation and education really is so important, because I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I knew nothing about consulting and finance. I was super lucky that my roommates were in the business school. And when we came back for sophomore year, instead of going to the dining hall, they were going to all of this on-campus recruiting. And this is the first time that I heard Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Boston Consulting Group. I didn't know they paid people to solve problems.
Right.
I did not know that was even something that existed. I had an inkling that I wanted to diversify my medical experience. What if I spend some time in the business world learning strategy, because that'll only help me come into the medical world, whether it's working with a hospital, whether it's leading a hospital. And that's how I started down the path of looking into consulting, looking into finance. And I was super lucky to be able to intern at Goldman Sachs. I say lucky, but it was a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I did did not know a ton about finance. I was a politics, philosophy, and economics major, but to give people color, I was like my first semester in microeconomics. And I read the Wall Street Journal back 3 months. I talked to everybody I knew who had interned at Goldman, who had worked at Goldman, and I really told them a story of like, hey, I understand that finance touches the world, very similar to healthcare. I think there's a lot of similarities between, you know, being a surgeon and thinking about the body and building an investment portfolio and thinking about all your asset classes.
Well,
and
I've never heard that correlation before.
Neither had
wow.
they. Neither had they. But it was an incredible opportunity to really bring an interdisciplinary mindset and really just show them that I loved thinking through problems.
Yeah.
I loved problems that didn't have answers. I loved being around smart people and asking good questions. And more importantly, when people ask me, how did you end up in investments in finance and not the typical investment banking route? It was because from the beginning I told them I love people. I like meeting people. I like listening to them. I like understanding their problems. And then I like making sure that they know that I am a partner in solving that problem for them. And that we're going to build something that's unique, that's customized to them. And they're going to feel like they actually have not just support, but a real relationship. And ultimately, I think that became the underbelly of everything that I've done in my career since then. It's always gone back to community. It's always gone back to talent and opportunity, always gone back to me using my skills and resources to be able to support others. And I think finance was just the first avenue in which I was really able to do that in the workforce setting.
Wow. Okay, so then you have this career in finance. Was there a moment that when the light turned on and you're like, I'm going out on my own?
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that I recommend to people, whether it's in this world of now creators, influencers, entrepreneurs, being such a clear path, because at least when I was growing up, being an entrepreneur was not something you saw represented a lot. Like Shark Tank was there, kind of, but even then, it wasn't something that was clearly represented. But one of the greatest experiences I had is that I worked on a very small and brand new team within Goldman. And it was a investment strategy team specifically focused on sustainability, community, women-focused investing, climate-focused investing.
Cool.
And it was very global. And as any team is, it was incredibly scrappy. At that time, Goldman had acquired a small impact investing shop and brought it in-house. And what happens is you kind of are working at a startup within this bigger behemoth. And for me, I knew that I loved working on things that didn't have answers yet. I knew that I loved the ability that we were creating something new, that we were working within something. But in a lot of ways, my boss was an entrepreneur who had started his own shop. So from the beginning, I knew that it was important for me to always be creating. It was important for me to be involved in strategy. I loved working with global executives. I loved working with C-suite individuals. I loved working with individuals who really had the power to envision with me, and then they had the power and the remit to go bring that plan into action. I would say that the transition from finance started with wanting to go into private markets and get closer to entrepreneurs. So I stepped away from Goldman Sachs and went into venture capital. And that was an incredible time because I think it allowed me to see what it looks like to build businesses with people from the ground up. And being a chief of staff at a fund, writing $1 to $2 million checks to women and people of color who were starting businesses of all kinds, it really helped me understand the mechanics of how to start businesses, from hiring, writing job descriptions, raising capital, understanding a minimum viable product, understanding marketing and how you go to market in general, and also cultivating your customer profile. And sitting in the world of venture capital, everybody wants to be an investor, everyone wants to raise money, and they want to deploy capital for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And I knew that I liked sitting in the seat because it was like watching 100 times over different people build businesses before I decided to build a business.
Yeah, fascinating.
I was always really clear with the fund managers that I was like, you're much more likely to see me maybe in the portfolio in 3 or 4 funds from now than you are to see me becoming a partner. And it's not because I don't value investing. I will always be an investor. I think it's incredibly important, and I continue to support the ecosystem in that way. But building something from the ground up was always very key. And to the aha moment, I realized in retrospect that I think I had it as a child, because I was the kid in school when they would be like, we're having a volleyball tournament, that I would say, great, there's 40 people in our class. We have 3 weeks till the tournament. Let's collect money from everyone, make t-shirts and sell them at a profit, and then give the money back to the school to donate to like a new gym or new gym equipment. I loved a lemonade stand. I loved convincing teachers and administrators to let me run different projects from the ground up, whether it was writing our school play or like running a penny challenge for the nonprofit donation. And so for me, that entrepreneurial spark of I loved building things before people told me the thing I had to build was a company was very, very clear. And it was all about returning back to that and really giving yourself a chance, betting on yourself, and taking the strategy that I so often give to other people and thinking about what it would look like if I really focused that strategy on building something of my own.
I think that's, I mean, I think really the layman's term of that is that entrepreneurial spirit, right? And I do think it's something that you have within you. I mean, can it be taught? Sure. But I do think, because I felt the same way. I think without even realizing it, I mean, my father was an entrepreneur. So I think, you know, I just saw that my whole life growing up. But I think that there's just something in an entrepreneur because it is a lot. It is a journey. It is 24/7. It is blood, sweat, and tears, but it is passion. It is excitement, and it is whatever the hell you want to make
it to be.
Yes.
And that's what's so incredible. I think that sometimes people can get caught up in the words. I'm so mindful in using certain words and jargon when I'm talking to the youth. Because even when I got into finance, I remember when I learned modeling was just, I was like, oh, you're putting equations in a spreadsheet. And that's not to simplify it. But on the other hand, like being an entrepreneur, I tell people, or being a creative, people create every day. You create your life every day. You create your schedule every day. You create your outfit every day. And you should be able to tap into what feels like it was organic and natural from as young as you were or at whatever age you discovered that spark. And then really just have, I think half of entrepreneurship is the courage and the audacity to say, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to give this a shot. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like every single day, but I'm going to take that risk and be comfortable with the uncertainty because I want to live a life that I feel like I crafted for myself.
Yeah. And I think you are not on your entrepreneurial journey unless there is uncertainty. Okay, this is what it is for right now. Tomorrow, it's a totally different thing.
And getting comfortable with that is so important. There's seasons. There's seasons to entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's a
and
great
you
way
don't
to
know
put
that
it.
your first inning in. You're like, oh, like you might come in, you're like, I have a plan, like this is exactly how I want it to look. Every year has looked different. Every season has looked different.
Just doesn't stop looking different.
And you evolve along the way as well. And the team evolves and what you want might evolve and the way that business fits into your life might evolve. But that's the beauty of it and the joy in it. And if you ride that wave instead of fighting it, I think that you end up discovering something much more beautiful about yourself because the entrepreneurial journey, I mean, as you know, it's a deeply personal one as well.
It is. Yeah. It can also be isolating or lonely at times, right? And that's not to say that you don't have people supporting you or mentors or things. But I think at the end of the day, when it is your own business, your own thing, and you're the one making those decisions, you know, you kind of look around and think, well,
I was really fortunate that I got advice. I'm someone who I like to go out and ask people about their experiences. I always know that every experience is going to be different from mine, but I say that maybe by collecting the culmination of other people's experiences will just make me a little bit more prepared when my experience shows up the door and my challenge shows up the door. And I think a couple of things that people said was when you take the leap to become an entrepreneur, you're going to quickly find out the risk tolerance of other people in your life. Not even you, but it may be your parents, it may be your siblings, it may be your friends. People may not understand your decision because they may not want that type of risk and uncertainty in their life. They may be very happy being able to move forward in their corporate career, and they may even see the fact that you're leaving corporate, especially from a job that's coveted, whether it's venture capital or Goldman, as kind of taking a step back or taking a step to the side. Your conviction has to sit with you, and you have to be able to return to it. Maybe you may waver or you may have doubts.
You will.
You definitely will.
Always.
Having that internal gut and strengthening that is absolutely key. I think on the other side of it with entrepreneurship, the buck stops with you in a way that I don't think you ever experience in the corporate landscape. You are the end all and be all decision maker. You're probably taking on a bunch of functions that used to just be clockwork, or you used to just have at your hand in prior roles. So whether that's figuring out HR, figuring out legal, figuring out taxes. And some of those things can be really scary and intimidating because they're not always talked about. They're not always the sexy parts of the business.
Oh.
And there's a portion of being entrepreneurial, even if, let's say, you're a marketer and you go into building a marketing agency and you know that well and you're an expert, there's going to be part of the business where you're going to need to be autodidactic, where you're going to need to learn about the thing on the job and be okay with being really crappy at that portion of it, and finding people who can support you. But I think that, number one, the conviction has to come from you because not everyone's going to understand your journey. Number two, when you take on being an entrepreneur, it's very important that you know that there's going to be parts of the business you may be an expert at, but there's going to be parts of the business that you're going to have to learn. And then number three, it's the ultimate risk and reward because everything does stop with you, but it also means that you get to craft something that's really in your image and your vision and your likeness. But all of that, again, it's an incredibly scary journey. And I think the scariest part for me isn't necessarily always executing. It's being honest with yourself, radically honest with yourself about what you want to build, why you want to build it, how you want to build it, what your standards are for good, better, and best that have nothing to do with anybody else, and really setting your own benchmark. Because as an entrepreneur, you may not find one person who's the corollary for what you want to do. And it's an exercise that I walk some of my coaching clients through where I say, let's choose 5 or 6 people that there's something that they're doing in their journey that represents you. And that can make up your benchmark. But ultimately, you're defining your own pace. You're defining your own success. And a lot of that can be incredibly scary to do.
Yeah. But I mean, anything that's worth it is going to be scary, right? And it's only scary because it's not familiar. It's foreign. It's something
because
you've
it's
never
unfamiliar.
done before.
Then you start to learn to sit in the uncertainty and you're like, oh, okay, you know, like we're rolling from this client to this client and we're entering a new industry. And I remembered what it was like when we did that the first time. And the more successes you get under your belt, the more helpful it is. But sometimes you need that reminder of like, number one, you've survived every bad day that you've had. You've made it out of every situation so far. Hopefully you've made it out of situations and impressed yourself. And then the last portion I'll say is that community really is everything. I think it's very important to have mentors, those who are entrepreneurs and those who are not, because diversity of opinions is important. If you can build a community of other people who are founders and entrepreneurs, whether that's in agency life, whether that's as creatives, whether that's as solar entrepreneurs, whatever it is, if you can build a community of other people who are entrepreneurs, and then the people in your life that have no relation and corollary to business, whether that's your friends, your family, whoever it is, just making sure you're still building a life that's full and grounds you, I think ultimately makes you better in the way that you show up for your work.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree more. So break down for us what your company does, because I think, you know, we connected, I think one of the first times that we spoke about how, because I get this question all the time that's like, what exactly is it that you do, right? And so I understand. So in layman's terms, right, break down like, what does your company do? What are all the services
all of the different
and skills
buckets
you provide? Yeah,
absolutely. So I mean, in layman's terms, we always say that we are an agency that builds at the intersection of impact and strategy. And what that really means is that we are looking for people who care about purpose, who care about mission, who care about community, who care about leaving the world a better place in whatever fashion that is: innovation, entrepreneurship, impact, philanthropy, leaving the world a better place. And they want to grow intentionally. And they come to an agency like ours to say, we want your help with strategy. We want your help coaching our executives and facilitating their learning and development, or we want your help producing an event that is really going to be meaningful in curating connection, in curating conversation, and in moving the world we want to see forward. And so our 3 lines of business are strategy consulting, executive coaching, and event production. Organizations typically live within their own world, and they don't always have a lot of insight into what is best in class that's going on with the peers around, what's going on within different industries from a government level, from a policy level, from a business level that we can learn from. And we partner with executives to really help take their vision and bring that to life. We
Cool.
help them think of strategy. We help them think of ideation. We help them galvanize their team. And really, we are experts in helping people pilot and launch things. The executive coaching bucket is really interesting because more and more, I think executives are starting to see themselves as experts, and they should, because
Yeah.
everybody has a skill set that they've really been able to cultivate, as we would say. And I think it's important.
Great word.
Of course, of course. And I think it's important that individuals are cultivating not just their skills, but also their platforms. So
Yeah.
more and more executives are thinking of how can I be in my day job, but also thinking about pursuing other passions that I've wanted to. How do I build a brand and portfolio of myself? And who do I work with for that? Because I'm not going to go to my manager, who I work with every day in my day job. I may not have a life coach. It's not necessarily a conversation I want to have with my therapist. You might have a really good partner that wants to see you succeed, but who's the person that you talk to about the different endeavors that you want to take on in this lifetime, and how you sequence them, and how you organize them, and how someone can help you be accountable, but also build a strategy for success as if you are the business. So we love working with that lane. We've worked with executives in the media industry. We've worked with executives in finance. We've worked with people coming out of their MBA that are launching endeavors for the first time and making that entrepreneurial transition. And then the last part of the business is, everyone will know, one of my favorite parts and the most organic is the event production side. People would always ask, what's the thing that's never on your resume? And I would say, I am the girl who loves a convening. I love a gathering. I love a party. I love a seating chart. I'm the girl who wants to bring everyone together, and I will order for the table because I think about that experience. And it really lies in my belief that there is not a singular conflict in the world that cannot be solved with a conversation. Getting the right people in the right room, in the right context, to have a conversation and connect with one another. And it's not just something that solves challenges and conflicts, but it's also where our best ideas and our best sense of innovation comes from. And that power of community and convening, it goes across every industry, every culture, every language. So event production is a big part of the work that we do, because ultimately we think it moves forward our mission, which is to help underserved communities discover their purpose and pursue their potential. And it helps us move forward our clients' mission in whatever they may be working on.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think it finally feels like in the last year or two, you know, that events are back. People are back. There was a couple years there where everyone's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm probably going to just stay in tonight, you know.
Not do too much.
Yeah, and I think it's still, I think the way that people look at their social calendars and the things that they're attending is a bit different, right? And I think that people are prioritizing the things that really matter and really mean something. So to your point, I think when someone is excited and passionate about this amazing dinner or panel or something that's going to impact their life or their career, I think people are just showing up more present.
Yes. Even in these times of just the digital age and how much information we're getting and how, you know, overstimulated the world is with information and access, and there's so much going on. People really appreciate a curated experience. And I think that what the pandemic did was, for better or for worse, it reminded us of the value of our time. So ultimately, what happened when people return to events is that I think they appreciate the things that feel intentionally curated for them. And some of my team will know when we talk about KPIs, some of the things that make me the happiest is when we plan a seating chart and we put two people next to each other that they don't know that they have the same business partner or deal, or they don't know that they're working on similar things. But somebody walks away saying, I loved this event because I sat next to this person and it literally felt
You're like the
I
magical
was
fairy
meant to have a
godmother,
conversation.
like, yeah,
That's exactly
you're
it.
like matchmaking.
I like to be like pulling all of the strings behind scenes, matchmaking, because ultimately it's those types of conversations and those types of sparks that your event may be the thing that helps two people meet each other, and 10 years down the line, they start a business. 5 years down the line, someone writes somebody else a check. When you think of our greatest mission, which is helping other people discover their skills and abilities and pursue their potential, we don't have to be present at every single point of that. We can just be the catalyst. We can be the spark moment. We can be the person who brings the right people into the room. Sometimes clients will just come to us and say, we think you have a really special gift for guest and audience curation. You will look at our relationships. You will look at your own relationships. You will be able to cold email someone who doesn't even know you, but the way that you will reach out and explain that they were very intentionally selected, and that's what makes people want to come back again and again when they get a Tonna Co event invitation.
I love that. I mean, you're speaking my language because there's nothing more beautiful than bringing the right people together, and then you're just kind of like, right? It brings joy. And being an entrepreneur, human to human connection is everything.
So important.
And you can learn more in a 1 hour dinner or event with a real connection with a real person than I think you can in 10,000 emails.
Absolutely. You know? And we are a social impact agency, which means that everything that we're doing in some way, shape, or form is serving an underserved or overlooked community. There are so many ways that there can be individuals who have just not had access to opportunity. But the same way we can convene a private dinner for a brand is the same way me and my team will be going down to Louisville to work with the Urban League there to help them on youth and gun violence. And we are actually bringing people together, curating town halls, having ecosystem meetings, building safety plans that are gonna save the lives of children. That community deserves for someone to say, you matter, and I'm going to bring in this expertise and insight. But also to what you said, I'm also going to believe that people are the answer to everything, which means I'm not going to come in like a big consulting firm and just say, okay, well, here's the playbook on what we do for gun violence.
Here's a check.
Here's what's worked for everybody else. I'm going to say, let's sit down with this community. Let's understand what you're specifically going through, what's different, what's been the history here, and how can we not only build something that's going to solve your challenges today, but how can we also empower you as individuals to be self-sustaining. These conversations and these connections and these community moments, they're incredibly important because words change people's lives. Moments change people's lives. Relationships change people's lives. And that is something that has been true for really all of time.
When you're working in a sector that does public service, right? And you are changing so many people's lives, what is the process of these are the folks that we're going to work for? And do you ever feel like you're carrying a bit of a burden for anyone who might be left over here?
That's an incredible question because oftentimes, especially coming from the world of business and finance, people would be like, okay, but what's your segment? What's your sector? What's your customer profile? How do you decide who you work with and who you don't? Having the pleasure of being in the impact industry and space for quite a while, I can tell what I call when someone is about it. I can tell when there was a period where diversity was sexy. Saying you were doing something for the community was more than just a tax write-off. People were seeing the benefits of being seen as a good patron and steward.
And you don't think that's true anymore?
We've gone back to a place where people don't have to do that. They can kind of just be direct about like, well, I really care about profit for profit's sake. I care about the people who are directly focused and related to my business. I care about my shareholders. And if I help or harm somebody else in the process, well, that's just what that's going to be. But even in the pandemic, that was something that we were hearing a lot, that it was not just about shareholders, but stakeholders. If you were a corporation holding on to loads and loads of hospital protection gear, and there were hospitals next door to you in your city that were struggling, people were looking at you sideways and saying, you know, we expect more. And what I will say, just because I love history as well, from a historical trend, we've seen this before. There's a reason that Andrew Carnegie was building Carnegie Hall. There's a reason that we saw Roosevelt and Rockefeller and all Vanderbilt and all of those individuals who had amassed large amounts of wealth being looked at as people who needed to be philanthropists and patrons. There was a sense of, to that whom much is given, much is expected. And I think that history goes through seasons of how much we are focused on that to those who are given a lot. And I think I came into the industry in a time where, again, a lot of that was being lauded and praised. But I've also been in the industry at times where that's taken a dovetail. We have always worked with people who care about those things regardless of what the current narrative and tone is in the country. The only thing they care about is, how do I need to be responsive to the current landscape to make sure I can keep doing this work?
We work with so many different nonprofits.
Of course.
And I mean, this is the first time that someone said this to me, but you were so right about the seasons, because I think about when the pandemic hit and George Floyd. I mean, just I feel like all anyone and everyone wanted to do was give back in whatever way and whether that was to certain communities or to the students who didn't have a graduation. Like it was the spirit of giving.
Absolutely.
We're all stuck at home, let's do everything to feel good. And you saw the rise of all these like online events that were raising money for this or for that. And what I've found in my business now and working with a lot of these nonprofits is there just isn't the interest. And I don't even know that it's actually that there isn't interest. I think there isn't need. To your point, I don't need to go and do this thing public facing to make my star, more well-rounded,
more desirable.
Yeah, it's like I can go and do my quiet little things over here. I can contribute to the XYZ Foundation, and I don't need to give a speech at this gala.
I was listening to, I think, a talk that Gwyneth Paltrow was doing about what it meant to be a celebrity in the 90s, and she was like, you got caught with paparazzi every once in a while, but for the most part, like the mystery was the joy of it. No one was really necessarily using their platform outside of their art. Like that was it.
Totally.
But I think what happens now is that I think more and more people are seeing themselves as the business. They're seeing the ability for them to have their craft and their art and the work that they do with other people and give to the world,
100%.
But their ability to create their own thing. And there's a couple of people who I think have been tent poles in this. I mean, number one, I love Elizabeth Taylor, and I love the fact that Elizabeth Taylor was like, hey, I really care about AIDS. I really care about the fact that I think this needs to exist. But now when you, I think, jump forward, there's people who are starting their own nonprofits. You have Carly Kloss with Code with Klossy was a huge thing. And I mean, she got so much pushback for that.
I know.
And now she's a media mogul as well as a model, which is great.
Yeah.
You have Lewis Hamilton starting Mission 44, people taking the lane that they're in, something like racing, and saying, I want to be able to build something that can help people get into this sport. I want to make it bigger than just getting into the sport. I want to think about STEM. For those celebrities who really do care about community, there's this intersection of, even though other people may not care about doing this for the vanity of it anymore, everybody is still focused on taking a portfolio mindset to their career.
100%.
And building something of some sort, instead of
With
just
substance.
instead of just being an ambassador, instead of just being a face of something. I find that when you're creating these entities, when you're launching these products and these projects, that is the thing that is most likely to live beyond you, especially if you take your celebrity and platform and you match it with somebody who has the strategy, the business acumen, the philanthropic acumen, who has the expertise of saying, I can build something that is not just going to be dependent on you. It can start
100%.
with you can be the catalyst, but I can build something that will have impact so much further than you. And I think, again, especially in the celebrity lane, that's when I know that they're really about it, where they say, I'm excited by the fact that this is somehow a way that I can use my platform and influence and touch people who may not even know my name, but for the way that I gave back and changed the trajectory of their life.
It's the rise of entrepreneurship across all aspects, right? I think even for everyday people, this rise of, and maybe that doesn't specifically mean a business, maybe it's a side hustle, maybe it's a passion project.
Yes.
But I think the accessibility, the way that we have access to everything, like the Elizabeth Taylor generation, I mean, imagine what it took to start a foundation at that time.
What I also love about what you're saying is that sometimes it's a business and sometimes it's an entity, but sometimes it's just a conversation.
Sure.
Conversations are incredibly powerful, and I think we're seeing that with the rise of podcasts. There is some oversaturation, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things that I also think is really important is that social media has allowed us the ability to see things that would have otherwise been unseen. Yeah. Our mothers and our grandmothers were collectivizing and getting together, whether it was for tea or whether it was for picnics, and they were organizing in of themselves. The women's suffrage movement was a thing, but ultimately, how much of that were you able to see in real time to then inspire you to go on and do your own thing? And that's what I also think is so impactful, that we are in the age of entrepreneurship. We are in the age of, for those who really care, not just focusing on the I, focusing on the we, focusing on community and believing that there's power in that, but we're also in the age of conversation and storytelling. and stories being the thing that can change somebody's life.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes, it was by Olamide. She's the founder of Topicals. They have the great Slick Salve lip gloss. And she said, at some point I realized that maybe me living out my dream was not only about me, that it was about if I don't live out my dream, there's somebody else who's supposed to see me who will never then get the catalyst for their dream.
I love that.
And I think that's why so many of us are not just focused on living our audacious creative lives, and I always say living beyond our ancestors' wildest dreams, but we're focused on also sharing that story with others and inspiring the next generation to be even more audacious with their work.
I love that. Oh, what would be your advice to just anyone young listening that wants to start their own thing, whatever it might be?
Number one, when people ask you the question of what you want to do when you grow up, stop limiting yourself to one answer. Let's do some
1,000%.
A, B, C,
Love
D,
that.
E, all of the above.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. I think allow yourself to water multiple passions. Again, great quote by someone I love, Elaine Welteroth.
Oh,
she
I
used
love
to,
her.
she is,
I
and she was my
know.
next door neighbor.
She was?
Serendipity in New York.
Oh,
I had read
love
her
her.
book. I moved on to a block in Brooklyn. We were
She's
next door neighbors.
amazing.
Next thing you knew, she was having her wedding in the street in the pandemic. But truly, again, a revolutionary and inspiring person who really crafted her own path. And one of the things she said is, life is a series of dreams realized. It is okay to have multiple dreams. It is okay to water multiple dreams. It is okay to go after multiple dreams and know that they all have different time lengths. I think what's important is that whatever you choose to water, you choose to give it your best, that you're not afraid to let go of dreams as well. There's, again, Cleo Wade, great quote. Sometimes your girlhood dreams can interrupt your womanhood dreams and vice versa, that the things that you wanted as a girl, you may come now into being a woman and you may not want those things anymore. Or the things you think you want as a woman, you find yourself kind of having an inkling of those little passions you had as a girl. And I think it's very important, if I was to say to somebody who's looking to start their own journey and to craft their own life, when people ask you what you want to do, be okay with the multitudes of yourself. Be okay with the multiple lives you can live in this one lifetime. Be okay understanding that life is a series of dreams realized, and what you chose when you were 18 doesn't have to be the same thing you're doing when you're 70, that you can start over and over again. And if you get scared, look at Ava DuVernay, who didn't pick up a camera till she was 40. Look at all the different people who didn't start the career we know them for until they were in their 50s or 60s. Don't be afraid to water multiple opportunities, but also don't be afraid to release and evolve, to return as well, and to know that you are a constant evolution. And as long as you are going after it, that is the goal, to be at the end, because we're all going to, pass on one day, and to be sitting down and saying, there's things I wanted to do in this life and I made my greatest effort and attempt to do them, because that to me is happiness. That to me is a fulfilled life.
And try everything, right?
Try
because
everything.
if you don't, then you're just living in regret or what ifs.
Yeah.
And that's the worst all-consuming feeling ever.
And let yourself exist at multiple levels. I think one of the hardest things about being an entrepreneur is that I'm a perfectionist. So much so that I even want to be perfect at like my bias towards action and being able to rapidly iterate. But it's important to let yourself live life at multiple levels. You can be a beginner at, with your plants, and then you can be an expert at being in marketing, and allowing yourself to really fluctuate and know that it's about the experience. It's about knowing that if you do something and you don't like it, you can put it down.
Yeah.
If you do something and you like it, but it's hard, you can keep going. But ultimately, again, if you ever get nervous, if you ever get scared, find autobiographies. Find people talking about their journey, and let yourself see the multitudes that exist within these people that you may think are perfect cookie cutters.
Yeah.
But within their story, you'll see that they had multiple paths and many, many detours along the way. And sometimes the detour becomes the journey.
Yeah. Any specific autobiographies that you feel like had a direct impact on your life?
Michelle Obama's Becoming. She's been to the mountaintop, and she tells us all the time, I've been there. I've seen the greatest rooms, the greatest tables. There's nothing that they're doing that you cannot be doing as well.
Yeah.
Elaine Welteroth, again, a big, big, big one. More Than Enough. I think there's so much power in that title, that we are all more than enough. Incredible. Viola Davis. And I think it's because I'm not an actor. And there's sometimes something nice about reading someone's biography that you don't have any relation to what they're doing, So you get to have the study of just someone making their way through life. The year of yes, I think, was a big one at the beginning of the entrepreneurship season. Shonda Rhimes and her concept of the hum, which is kind of that energy you get. People call it the flow state. She calls it the hum, where you're in the thing and creativity is flowing out of you. Execution is flowing out of you. The magic and the light is flowing out of you. You have endless energy.
Yeah.
And she talks about what happens when your hum stops.
Yeah.
And how you can find your way back to yourself. So I would say that those ones have really shaped me as individuals. I didn't notice that I literally just named all Black women, but great people,
oh my God.
great people to read, and some incredible
heroes,
work.
legends. Yeah. Wow. Well, Tonna, tell us, where can we find you? Where can we follow you? How do we keep up with your incredible journey?
So we have a website, Tonna.co. You can go there to get some insight into the work that we do and the business that we run. We have our social media pages on Instagram and on LinkedIn as well. And then you can see us in the wild in conversations like this, in the events that we run, in the gatherings that we put together. And most importantly, you can see us showing up and supporting our clients. And I always say, if you're someone who has a problem that doesn't have an answer, has a question that you're not sure how to approach, have a vision that you want to bring to life, but you don't know where to start, or even if you're building something that you want to take a strategic look at, whether it's your life or a project, give us a call. The last thing I always say is that life is about community. If I am not the person who can solve your problem, I will absolutely give you an intro and a referral to somebody else who can.
I love that. Thank you so much
Thank you for this conversation. I mean, this is what you do so well. I mean, you cultivate the moment, you cultivate the magic, whether it's with talent that are celebrities or making people feel like talent in their own life.
But you are.
That's such a magical skill.
No, you are something so special and so unique, and I'm just sitting here just like in awe. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
And thank you everyone for being here for another episode of Cultivated Conversations from New York City.
Yes, from New York.
Please send us an email, say hi at cultivatedent.com. We want to hear from you. Tell us what you thought about today's episode, and please don't forget to go follow Tonna. And thank you so much for being here again. Until next time.